The Galactic Integration Academy was the biggest school in the known galaxy, and it had only one job, which was to teach young aliens from different worlds how to live together without killing each other. James Parker walked through the main doors on his first day, and he felt very small. He was the only human in the whole school, and most of the teachers did not even know where Earth was located on the star maps because humans had only joined the Galactic Concordat 3 years ago. The hallways were huge and built for creatures of all sizes, and James saw beings that looked like walking trees, and others that looked like floating jellyfish, and some that had so many eyes he could not count them all. He found his classroom and went inside early because he did not want to be late on his first day. The room was shaped like a big bowl with seats going up in circles, and James picked a seat in the middle because he thought that was the safest choice. Other students started coming in, and they all looked at him with curiosity because most of them had never seen a human before. A group of tall, thin aliens with skin you could see. Two took the back rows, and they whispered to each other in voices that sounded like wind chimes. Some bug-like creatures with clicking mouths settled into special pods that were made for their bodies. Small, furry aliens with ears bigger than their heads huddled together near the door, and they kept looking around like they expected something bad to happen. Then the room went quiet. James looked up and saw why Vrixen had entered the classroom. James had heard about Vrixens during his training before coming to the academy, and the stories were not nice. Vrixens were hunters from a dark world where the sun barely shined, and they had been the terror of the galaxy for hundreds of years. This one stood 7 feet tall and had black scales covering its whole body, and 4 arms that ended in claws that could cut through metal. It had 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows, and they glowed orange like fire in the dim light of the room. But James noticed something that the other students did not seem to see. This Vrixen was young. Its scales still had gray patches on them, which meant it was not fully grown, and it moved with an uncertainty that James recognized right away. It was scared. Every other alien in the room pushed away from wherever the Vrixen walked, and they left empty seats all around it like there was an invisible wall. The young Vrixen looked around the room with all 6 of its eyes, searching for somewhere to sit where it would not be completely alone. There was no such place. James watched as the creature's shoulders dropped, and it began walking toward the far corner of the room where it would sit by itself away from everyone else. James did not think about what he did next. He just did it. "Hey," he called out, and his voice was loud in the quiet room. He pointed to the empty seat next to him. "This one is free. Every single eye in the room turned to look at him, and there were a lot of eyes. The Vrixen stopped moving and stared at James with an intensity that would have made most beings run away screaming. But James had grown up in Montana on Earth, where he had learned to hunt with his father since he was a small boy. He had faced grizzly bears and mountain lions in the wild forests near his home. A scared alien teenager did not make him afraid. "I am James," he said with a small smile. "The seat is yours if you want it." The Vrixen walked toward him slowly like it was expecting a trap or a joke. It sat down in the seat next to James and tried to make itself smaller by folding all 4 of its arms close to its body. "I am called Crix," the Vrixen said, and its voice was so deep that James felt it vibrate in his chest. "You are Terran human." "Yeah," James said, and he shrugged his shoulders. "Same thing, basically. You do not fear me." Was not a question, but a statement of confusion. James looked at Crix, and he saw past the scales and the claws and the glowing eyes. He saw a kid who just wanted to fit in. "Should I be afraid?" he asked. Crix did not have time to answer because the door at the front of the room opened with a hiss. The instructor came in, and James felt his mouth fall open a little. The teacher was massive and looked like someone had mixed a praying mantis with a horse. It had a long body with many legs and big eyes that reflected the light like mirrors, and sharp arms that looked like they could cut through stone. The instructor looked around the room, and its eyes stopped when it saw James and Crix sitting together. James could have sworn he saw surprise on the creature's face, even though it looked nothing like a human face. Then the instructor's mouth parts spread apart in what James was almost sure was a smile. The big alien moved to a control panel on the wall and pressed several buttons. Every door in the room slammed shut with a loud metal sound. "Welcome to your first test," the instructor said, and its voice came through the translation device in James' ear. "You will not leave this room until you show me real cooperation between species." The test starts now. The lights went out, everything was dark, and somewhere in that darkness something made a sound that was definitely not friendly. James heard screaming from the small furry aliens and clicking panic from the bug creatures. The see-through aliens started glowing with a blue light from inside their bodies, which only made the shadows look scarier. James stayed very still in his seat next to him. Crix had gone stiff like a statue, but its eyes were glowing brighter now. "Something is in here with us," Crix said quietly. "I can smell it. Is a blood hunter old and very old?" "What is a blood hunter?" James whispered back. "Training beast from my world," Crix answered. "We use them to teach young Vrixens how to hunt, also to remove the weak ones who cannot survive." "That is great," James muttered. "So, this is a test to see who survives." "Yes, and most of these beings will fail," Crix pointed toward the panicking aliens around them. "They are prey species, and they will scatter and hide and make themselves easy targets. The blood hunter will pick them off one by one until someone shows they can fight back." James heard something big move in the darkness at the front of the room. He caught a quick look at too many legs and shining teeth before the creature moved back into the shadows. "Crix," he said slowly, "you can see in the dark, right?" "Yes, and you are a predator, so you know how predators think." "Yes." James felt his brain start working fast, like it always did when he was hunting with his father back home. He understood animals and how they thought. He understood that even the scariest predator could be outsmarted. "We need to get everyone working together," he said. "Those glowing aliens can give us light. The clicking bugs might be able to use sound to find things in the dark, and those little furry ones have huge ears, so they probably have amazing hearing." Crix turned all 6 eyes toward James. "You want to hunt the hunter," it said, "using prey animals as tools. I want us to stop being victims and start being a team." James stood up from his seat. "And I need your help because you are the only one here who's not scared of the dark." Crix rose up next to him, and in the faint blue glow from the panicking see-through aliens, James saw the Vrixen's mouth parts spread in what he was starting to recognize as a smile. "Terran," Crix said, "I think I understand now why the elders of my species whisper about humans. You are not prey, you are something much more interesting." James allowed himself a small grin. "Come on," he said. "Let us go make some friends." James and Crix moved through the dark classroom together, and the chaos around them was getting worse by the second. The small furry aliens called Makari were screaming in sounds so high that James could barely hear them, but they made his teeth hurt. The bug aliens, called Korath, were clicking their mouths so fast it sounded like rain on a metal roof. The tall see-through aliens, called Velathi, were glowing brighter and brighter with fear, and their blue light made everything look strange and scary. James knew he had to act fast before everyone lost their minds completely. He walked up to the nearest group of Velathi and held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Hey," he said in a calm voice, "I need your help." The Velathi looked at him with wide eyes and then looked at Crix, who was standing right behind James, like a giant shadow with glowing orange eyes. "Why is that thing with you?" one of the Velathi asked with a shaking voice. "That thing is my friend," James said, "and right now, we need to work together or that blood hunter in the dark is going to get all of us." The Velathi looked at each other, and James could see they were scared, but also desperate. "What do you want us to do?" one of them asked. "Can you all glow at the same time and make a big circle of light?" The Velathi nodded slowly. "We can do that." "Good." James said, get as many of your people as you can and form a wall of light around the hole. Class Crix, help me talk to the Korath. Rickson nodded, and they moved toward the clicking bug aliens. The Korath were huddled in their special pods, and their clicking was so loud and fast that James could not understand anything. Even with his translation, Divisa Crix made a deep rumbling sound in its chest, and the Korath went quiet. The human wants to speak, the Rickson said. James stepped forward. I heard that some species can use sound to see in the dark, like bats on my world. Can you do that? One of the Korath clicked more slowly, and the translation came through. We can make sounds and hear where things are. Yes. Can you track the blood hunter and tell us where it is moving? Korath talked among themselves with rapid clicks, and then the leader turned back to James. We will try. James felt hope growing in his chest now. He turned to find the Makari with their huge ears. They were the hardest to approach because they were so scared. Crix stayed back. This time, because its size and teeth were making them panic even more, James walked toward them alone with his hands out and his voice soft. Hey, little friends, he said, I know you are scared, and that is okay, but I need you to do something for me. One of the Makari stepped forward, and James saw it was very small even compared to the others. Why should we trust you? It asked in a tiny voice. Because I am trying to save everyone, James said, and because that big scary Rickson over there is my friend, and if I can be friends with a predator, then you can trust me. To the small Makari looked at Crix, who waved one of its four hands in an awkward greeting. What do you need us to do? The Makari asked. Your ears are amazing. James said, can you listen for the blood hunter and tell us when it is getting close? The Makari touched its huge ears and nodded. We can hear very well. Good. James smiled. Then you are going to help save everyone. He gathered all the groups together in the middle of the room, and Crix helped him explain the plan. The Velati formed a ring around them and linked hands and started glowing together. The blue light pushed back the darkness, and James could finally see the whole room. The Korath spread out in a pattern and started making clicking sounds that echoed off the walls. They were mapping the room with sound. The Makari positioned their ears toward every shadow and listened for any movement, and in the center stood James and Crix, ready to face whatever came. They did not have to wait long. One of the Makari squeaked loudly. Something is coming from the left side very fast, the Korath confirmed it with urgent clicks. Big creature moving low to the ground. James turned to Crix. Can you see it? Crix eyes were locked on a patch of shadow that looked no different from any other to James. Yes, the Rickson growled. It is testing us, looking for a weak point. Valathi, James shouted. Focus your light on the left side. The glowing aliens turned together, and their combined light blazed toward the left. Bloodhunter came into view for just a moment. It was horrible. The creature had a body like a spider, but with more legs than James could count, and a head full of teeth that seemed to go back forever into its throat. Its eyes were small and red, and they reflected the Valathi light like drops of blood. But when the light hit it, the creature hissed and pulled back into the remaining shadows. It worked, James said, and he felt his heart pounding hard. Everyone, stay together and keep the light strong. The Bloodhunter circled them for what felt like hours. It would probe from different directions, and each time, the Makari would hear it coming, and the Korath would track its movement, and the Velothi would blast it with light. Each time, the creature got close. Crix would step forward with claws out and make a sound that was part growl and part challenge. The Bloodhunter did not like that sound at all. Slowly, the attacks became less frequent. The creature was learning that this group was not easy prey then. It stopped attacking completely. The room went quiet except for the humming of the Velothi light and the soft clicks of the Korath. James looked at Crix. Did we win? The Rickson sniffed the air with nostrils that James had not even noticed before. It as retreated to the corner. Crix said it knows it cannot beat us. It is waiting for a new strategy, but before the Bloodhunter could try anything new, the lights in the room came back on. Bright white light flooded everything, and James had to cover his eyes for a moment. When he could see again, the blood hunter was gone. In its place stood the instructor. Looking at them with those big mirror eyes, the creature walked toward them slowly, and James noticed that everyone in the class was still in their defensive formation. No one had broken ranks, no one had run away. Fascinating. The instructor said, in awe, "My years teaching this class, I have never seen that outcome. The blood hunter is not real, you understand it. Is a hologram that responds to your behavior. It is designed to test how long a group takes to work together or fall apart." The instructor looked at James and Crix, standing side by side. Most groups fall apart in minutes. Some take hours to organize. You achieve defense in less than 10 minutes. James felt the Makari tugging on his leg and looked down. The small one, who had first talked to him, was looking up with big eyes. "You saved us," it said. James shook his head. "We saved us, all of us together." Instructor made a sound that might have been approval. "The room will stay sealed for the rest of this course. You will learn to work together, or you will not learn at all." The big alien turned toward its desk, "And for your information, the blood hunter simulation has never retreated before. You did not just survive the test, you won it." James looked at Crix, and Crix looked at him. Something had changed between them. They had been strangers just an hour ago. Now they were something else. Now they were pack. Weeks passed inside the sealed classroom, and James started to forget what the outside world looked like. The academy provided food through special machines in the walls that gave each species what they needed to survive. The students slept on mats that came out of the floor at night, and every day brought new tests that pushed them harder and harder. But James and his group did not break. They became stronger. Crix never left James' side anymore. The big Rixon sat next to him during every lesson, and ate near him during meals, and slept curled up in a huge ball just a few steps away from where James made his bed at. First, the other species watched this with fear. A predator following a human around seemed like a nightmare waiting to happen, but slowly they started to see the truth. James made Crix gentle, and Crix made James strong. It started with small things. One day during a navigation exercise, a tiny Makari named Pip got separated from her group. James found her hiding in a corner, shaking so hard her huge ears were vibrating. Before he could say anything, Crix was there. The massive Rixon lowered itself to the ground until all 6 of its glowing eyes were at the same level as the tiny creature. "Little one," Crix rumbled in that deep voice, "I'm not lost. You are just in a different place than you expected. Come with us, and the human will show you the way back." Pip stared at the predator with its sharp teeth and deadly claws. Then she looked into those orange eyes, and she saw something there. That was not hunger. She saw kindness. Pip climbed onto Crix's shoulder and rode there for the rest of the exercise. Word spread through the class after that. The Rixon was not hunting anyone. It was protecting them, because James asked it to more and more. Students started coming to James and Crix when they needed help. The Korath began including them in their clicking conversations using translation software to help everyone understand. Velathi shared their glowing secrets and taught James how to read their emotions by the color of their light. Blue meant calm, and green meant happy, and red meant they were scared or angry. Even the instructor seemed to watch them with something like hope. Then the second big test came. The instructor gathered everyone together and spoke in that clicking, translated voice survival scenario. One student will be placed in extreme danger. Others must rescue them. If you fail, the student is expelled from the academy. The walls of the room began to shift and move. The academy had advanced hologram technology that could make fake environments that felt completely real. When the walls stopped moving, the class found themselves in a thick jungle with alien plants everywhere, and Pip was gone. The other Makari started panicking immediately. Their big ears swiveled wildly as they searched for their missing friend. James heard a scream coming from somewhere high above them. It was tiny and terrified, and it was definitely Pip. He looked at Crix. The Rixon was Already moving Crix launched itself into the trees with a grace that seemed impossible for something so big. Its forearms grabbed branches while its powerful legs pushed it higher and higher. James ran on the ground below, crashing through the undergrowth, while the Korath clicked out a map of the terrain for everyone to follow. They found Pip 50 meters up in the canopy. She was sitting on a thin branch, and all around her were hologram predators. The fake creatures looked like smaller versions of the Blood Hunter from their first test. They could not actually hurt her because they were just light and sound, but Pip did not know that she was frozen with fear. I'm going up there, Crix growled. Wait, James grabbed one of the Vrixen arms. Look at her. She is so scared she cannot move. If you go charging up there looking like the biggest predator in the forest, she's going to jump off that branch and foul. Crix paused. Then what do we do? James turned to the Velothi who had followed them. You can glow really bright, right? A quiet Velothi named Luma nodded. Can all of you glow at once and light up the whole canopy? Luma looked at the other Velothi, and they nodded together. They began to glow. One Velothi alone made soft light, but together they became like a small sun. The hologram predators scattered and disappeared because their programming made them run from bright light. Now, James said to Crix. Vrixen climbed slowly this time, with no sudden movements. When it reached Pip branch, it did not grab her. Instead, it crouched nearby and started making a sound James had never heard before. It was a low humming that seemed to vibrate through the air. Pip terror began to fade. Her ears dropped from their stiff, scared position. Her tiny body relaxed. Said Crix reached out one hand slowly. Come, little one, the Vrixen said softly. You are pack. You are safe. Pip climbed onto Crix and buried herself in the scales of its neck. Crix brought her down slowly, and when they reached the ground, James was waiting. What was that sound? He asked. Pack song. Crix answered. Vrixen mothers use it to calm their babies. I did not know if it would work on other species. Those 6 orange eyes met James' eyes. But you taught me that maybe we are not so different. Underneath, the jungle faded away, and they were back in the classroom. The instructor stood watching them with those mirror eyes. Time to rescue was 4 minutes, the instructor said. The old record was 11 minutes. Success rate for the victim in this test is usually only 60%. You achieved 100% success. How did you do it? James shrugged. I just figured out what everyone was good at and let them do it. You trusted a predator with the life of a prey species. I trusted my friend. James said. What species? It does not matter. That night when everyone was sleeping, Crix curled up next to James' mat. You called me friend, the Vrixen said quietly. You are my friend. On my world, friendship between different species is not possible. We are predators. We do not make attachments on my world. James said with a smile. We make friends with everything, dogs and cats and horses. Some people even keep spiders as pets. He looked at Crix. You are just a very big, very scary friend who happens to see really well in the dark. Crix made that purring sound that James had learned meant the Vrixen was happy. Sleep human. Tomorrow will be harder. It always is, James said. But for the first time since coming to the academy, he fell asleep smiling. The final week of the course began with news that changed everything. The instructor gathered them at what passed for morning inside their sealed room and spoke without any introduction. The Galactic Concordat is watching you, not as a saying, but actually watching right now. Hologram screens appeared around the room, and each one showed a different alien face. James saw what looked like politicians and military leaders and diplomats from dozens of different species. They have been watching since your first day. The instructor continued. You are not just students. You are an experiment for the future of the galaxy. The room went completely silent. James felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders like a heavy blanket. Why tell us this now? He asked. Because the final test will be shown live to all of them, and because some of those watching want you to fail. Whispers and worried sounds spread through the students. James saw the different species starting to group together with their own kind. Old fears were coming back. There are groups in the Concordat, the instructor said, who believe humans are too dangerous to be part of galactic society. They believe Rixons are too violent to trust. They believe prey and predator can never truly live together. They are hoping you will prove them right. The instructor looked at every student one by one. Your final test will push you to your limits. You will have every reason to abandon each other. Every reason to let fear win. If you fail, then the Concordat will have proof that species must stay separate. Your failure will not just hurt you. It will hurt everyone who comes after you, James. Watch the temperature in the room. Drop not the actual temperature, but the feeling. Species that had been working together for weeks were now pulling apart. The Makari clustered with other Makarath retreated to their pods. Even the Velathi moved away from the others. No, James stood up from his seat. Listen to me. His voice cut through the fear, and everyone turned to look at him. I do not care who is watching. I do not care about the Concordat or their politics. I care about the people in this room. He walked to the center of the group where everyone could see him. We have already done impossible things together. We beat the Bloodhunter on our first day. We have passed every test they threw at us. Whatever they try next, we face it the same way. As a team pip climbed up to his shoulder from somewhere nearby. I trust James, she said in her tiny voice. Luma, the quiet Velathi, stepped forward, and her glow was steady and calm. I trust James. One by one, every student in the room spoke up, even the species who had been most scared at the beginning, even the ones who had doubted the most. They all said they trusted. James Grix was the last to speak. I would die for this human, Lavrixon said simply, and I would die for any of you who stand beside him. This is what pack means. This is what family means. Today we are all pack. The instructor watched all of this in silence. If there was any emotion behind those big mirror eyes, James could not read it. The final test begins in 1 hour, the instructor said. Use your time wisely. They used every minute. James made a plan and gave everyone a job based on what they did best. Crix practice formations with the Velathi, teaching them how to move their light in patterns. The Korath and Makari worked on ways to communicate faster. By the time the hour was up, they had become more than just a class. They had become a unit. The walls began to shift again, but this time they did not create a new fake environment. They opened. For the first time in weeks, James saw real exits. 3 doorways leading to different hallways, and from each hallway came the sound of footsteps. Many, many footsteps. Final test, the instructor announced, is simple. 3 teams of hostile students will try to break into this room. Each team was told they are in a competition for limited spots at the academy. Each team believes defeating you is the only way they can succeed. James felt his blood go cold. You are sending other students to attack you and creating real conditions, the instructor replied. In the galaxy outside these walls, you will face hostility from those who fear what you represent. You must be ready for that. The footsteps grew louder. You have 5 minutes to prepare. After that, the doors will open fully. No weapons are allowed, because this is a test of strategy and teamwork. You must stop your opponents or convince them to give up. Those are your only options. The instructor moved toward a protected viewing booth. One more thing, the Concordat observers expect you to fail-proof them wrong. The door sealed behind the instructor. 5 minutes. James looked at his team and saw fear on every face. Even Crix seemed uncertain, with all 6 eyes moving between the 3 doorways. But beneath the fear, James saw something else. He saw trust. Okay, he said. Here is what we are going to do. He spoke quickly, laying out positions and plans the Velathi would use. Their light as a weapon to blind and confuse. The Korath would use their clicking to track enemy movements. The Makari would listen for threats from all directions. And in the center, James and Crix would hold the line. Everyone moved to their positions. The 5 minutes felt like 5 seconds. Then the doors opened and the enemy poured in. 3 teams of hostile students charged through the doorways, and each team had about 20 members, all desperate to win. They came from different species and different worlds, but they all shared one goal: defeat James and his group and take their place at the academy. James had expected this velocity. Now he shouted. Every Velothi in his group linked hands and blazed with light, but not just bright light. They made patterns, flashing rhythms designed to confuse without causing real harm. The charging teams stumbled and covered their eyes. Korath tracked them. The clicking exploded through the room as the bug aliens mapped every enemy position with sound. There, information flowed through the translation devices, so everyone on James' team knew where every threat was located. Crix lead the defense. The young Vrixen threw back its head and roared. It was a sound James had never heard before. Ancient and powerful and terrifying. It was not a threat to attack. It was a declaration. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are pack. The hostile teams hesitated. They had come expecting easy targets. They thought they would find scared prey species and one isolated predator. They did not expect organization. They did not expect resistance. James stepped forward with his hands raised. Listen to me. His voice carried through the chaos. The instructors told you this was a competition. They told you that beating us was your only way forward. But think about it. Does that make any sense? Some of the hostile students paused to listen. Others kept coming. The academy exists to teach species to work together. James continued. They do not want us to fight each other. They want to see if we can find another way. He turned to his team. Test Makari team, focus on the group coming from the west. Talk to them, find common ground. Korath, do the same with the eastern group. Velothi and Crix, hold the center. It was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. The Makari ran toward the western group, which James now saw was made up mostly of prey species like themselves. Pip led the way with her tiny voice, somehow carrying above all the noise. They want us to fight, she called out. But why? What do we gain by hurting each other? The western group leader was a nervous-looking plant creature that swayed uncertainly. We were told that you were told lies. Pip interrupted. Look at us. Look at what we built. Predator and prey working together. If we can do it, so can you. Western group stopped advancing. Their weapons were soft restraining devices. James noticed non-lethal, just like the instructor had promised. They lowered them slowly. Meanwhile, the Korath engaged the eastern group with pure sound. Their clicking created a wall of communication that the other team could not ignore. The message was simple. We are not your enemy. Stand down. The eastern group began to waver, but the center was the hardest battle. Crix stood at the front, facing a team made almost entirely of predator species. These were beings who saw the young Vrixen as either a rival to defeat or a target to prove themselves against. Their leader was massive and covered in scars from many fights. You are outnumbered, child. The scarred predator growled. Step. Acidicrix did not move. No, you would die for these prey creatures. I would die for my pack. James walked up to stand beside Crix, and the scarred predator eyes widened with surprise. A human, the predator said, standing beside a Vrixen willingly. James corrected. He's my friend, and if you want to get to any of my team, you have to go through both of us. The scarred predator studied them for a long moment. Its eyes moved from James' calm face to Crix' protective stance to the organized chaos. Behind them were species that should hate each other were working in perfect harmony. Then it laughed. I was told that humans were just another soft species. The predator said, weak prey, pretending to be something more. I was told wrong. The predator stepped back and raised a hand to signal its teams. Stand down. This fight is over. One by one, the hostile teams stopped fighting. Some of them actually joined James' group, moved by what they had seen. Others simply walked away, unwilling to fight against something they had never seen before. Unity. The lights came up fully, and the instructor walked out from the viewing booth. Those big mirror eyes seemed to glow with something James had never seen in them before. Wonder. In 72 years, the instructor said slowly, I have given this final test over 400 times. It has never been resolved without a fight. Never those eyes fixed on James until today. The hologram screens around the room came back to life, showing the Concordat observers. Some of them were arguing with each other, looking angry, but most of them were smiling. The human experiment will continue. One of the observers announced integration of Rixen youth into mixed species education will continue, and this class will graduate with the highest honors our academy has ever given. Cheers erupted from every species in the room. Crix grabbed James with all four arms and lifted him into the air, making that happy purring sound louder than ever. Pip danced on his shoulder. Velathy glowed in celebration colors. Even the Korath clicking sounded like applause. Later, when the celebration calmed down, James found himself standing at a window, a real window, now that the room was finally unsealed. Beyond it, he could see Starskrix came to stand beside him. "You changed everything," the Rixen said quietly. "You sat beside me when no one else wouldn't. Because of that, the galaxy is different now." James shook his head. "I did not change anything. I just treated you like a person instead of a monster." "That is the same thing." Crix turned all six eyes toward him. "On my world, we have a saying, the hunt begins with a single step. You took that step, James. You started a hunt that will change the galaxy." "What kind of hunt?" Crix mouthparts spread into a full smile. "The hunt for a better future." James looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, species were still at war. Predators and prey still killed each other over ancient hatred. The Concordats still had groups that wanted fear and separation. But here in this room, something new had been born. It started with one human and one Vrixen sitting together when no one else would. It would end with a united galaxy. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday, and James Parker intended to be there when it happened. Predator Puppet sat by the Terran. The instructor had grinned and sealed the room, and the galaxy would never be the same.